As I approach 10 million views in Google Plus, I wanted to sit down and take stock of what it is that I'm actually doing and what's working and what's not. The key to effective content marketing, as Jason Falls says, is to find good shit and share it. But it's easy to say that. How do you actually do it? Okay? Because everything in the process has to be intentional. I've developed over the course of the years a workflow that I call the Elevation Workflow that consists of 9 different stages. Contemplating what you're about, consuming information that nourishes that expertise, and then curating or creating content that demonstrates your thought leadership and shows that you can be a trusted source, collected in all in one place so that it's easy to find. Once you do that, then you're ready to go out onto the big bad internet and connect with other people, converse with them, convert them to whatever it is that you're offering and create community out of it. But how does that actually work? So from a tactical standpoint, I've developed this flow chart that also shows the tools that I use in order to accomplish this. Now, I'm heavily influenced by David Allen and his classic book, Getting Things Done. The first thing I think he says it's relevant is that you need to use exactly as many containers or tools as you need and not a single one more. So when it comes to consuming content, you can consume content from Facebook, from Flipboard, from Instagram, from InnoReader, from Google+, from podcasts, etc. I limit myself to 3 tools. I use Flipboard, InnoReader, and podcasting. I consume that information, and with everything that I come across, then I have a choice. If I want to publish content, when I come across a good piece, then I say to myself, is this good enough to share? If it's not, then I go on to the next thing. Number 2 is, if it is good enough to publish, should I curate it to social media, or should I send it to my blog and write a blog post about it? So if I'm going to curate it, then I use a tool called Buffer. And going back to the post where I was before, one of the things that Buffer allows me to do is either to right-click and buffer an image, or I can go and highlight text, and I can tell Buffer to buffer the selected text. Once I do that, I can choose to which social network I want to send it. But here I'm going to add it to a queue. Now what happens with Buffer is that you set up a schedule, and as time goes by, what happens is Buffer releases your content. So here we are. Here's the thing that I just shared. The content that I just shared will not be released until tomorrow evening at 6:05. The great thing about this, actually tomorrow morning, sorry, at 6:05. But the great thing about this is that what Buffer does is allows me to create a schedule based on what they call the optimal timing tool. And Buffer asks you, how many times a day do you want to post? And then based on the number of people that are following you and when they're most likely to be online, then Buffer will give you a schedule, and it will attempt to release content into that schedule. Now, I could also share to a Facebook page, LinkedIn page, so forth and so on, but to do that, I use a tool called Friends Plus Me. I use Friends Plus Me to share to my Facebook page, to my LinkedIn page, and to my Twitter account. So when content appears on my Google Plus page, then it automatically goes to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Now, normally my mantra is never use 2 tools where one will do, but in this particular case, I make an exception. And the reason why is that both Buffer and Friends Plus Me, to me, the most beautiful thing would be if Buffer and Friends Plus Me got together and had a baby. and that all the features of both tools would be combined in one. But there are things about Buffer, like the optimal timing tool, that I like. And in Friends Plus Me is the only tool that allows me to post from a profile or from a page to a profile or page or collection or community. And that's a special power that no other tool has. So going back to the workflow, I use Friends Plus Me to take anything that lands in Google Plus and send it to these places. Now, another thing that I like to do is to use a third really incredible tool called Rebel Mouse. And Rebel Mouse automatically works in the background to collect content that I'm sharing. If I go into the content sources, you can see that Rebel Mouse automatically allows me to gather content from up to 25 different feeds. So I'm collecting from my Twitter account, from a Twitter list, from Google Plus, from YouTube, from RSS feeds, from Pinterest, etc. And it automatically puts it into this nice page. Now that in and of itself is cool, but here's the second thing. Just having this page would mean nothing if I couldn't make it relative to my website. So one of the things that Rebel Mouse allows me to do is to embed the content in any site. So on my website, I have a page called What I Read, and all the content that you find on Rebel Mouse is flawlessly displayed. So here is the Rebel Mouse page. And here is the page inside my site. Now, the great thing about this is, too, that I'm displaying all this content, but because I'm only using embed code, my site will not be penalized by Google for having light content or being a link farm, because the Rebel Mouse content never actually shows up. It's just a little piece of code that displays a beautiful page. Okay, so going back to the workflow, then everything goes to Rebel Mouse, and the Rebel Mouse page is displayed on the blog. If I want to create long form content, that's the easiest. All I do is go to my WordPress site, I select New Post, and I use, ultimately, I use the Yoast SEO Premium plugin to write flawless evergreen content that attracts and retains. But whether the content is timely or timeless, it all has a place on the website. It all ends up on the blog. And all of these things work together to draw people in. Now, here may be the most beautiful thing about this entire workflow, is that the only thing on here that's a mandatory cost, and we could even have a discussion about that, is purchasing your own domain. That costs about $12 a year if you buy it from Google. Every other tool on here is freemium, meaning it starts free and you pay to make it premium. But I like to pay for it. So Buffer cost me $10 a month. Friends Plus Me cost me $9 a month. And the only other thing that I have is the cost of my domain and my self-hosted WordPress blog, which costs about $60 a year. So about $100 a year for Buffer, $100 a year for Friends Plus Me, $60 a year for hosting, and for under $300, you can have an incredible content marketing machine. That's how you find good shit and share it. Questions? Feedback? I'd love to have it.